turn it is. I'm so moved by those words. And I'm reminded of a metaphor, of an example I learned through story about a certain breed of monkeys. And they would put their hand in a jar to get nuts. Then when they clutched the nuts, they couldn't get their hand out of the jar. So let's relate to this. That which we cling to, that which we claw for, that which we fill our hands up with, that which we fill our lives up with, and maybe what the consequences are to that. So visually you can see we'd be walking around with a jug on our hand. Not all that useful, right? Think about a big jug, a bigger jug, a barrel, that the same principle would apply. So what are you willing to empty your hands to today? To say, hey, it was great, it was good, and I'm going to be a bit more open to this. And this life that I'm living still has times of doubt. I admit that I doubt sometimes. I admit confusion, bewilderment. I admit my own humanity that says this, even our first song that says, don't worry. Any worriers here? It's like worry takes a bad rap. Everybody worries at times. I just had to get a different perspective on this over the years, because the science about worry is useful if what? With action. Worry activates a part of our brain that is solution-driven, that is innovative, creative, collaborative, resourceful, thoughtful, intentional, and that can hold a higher space from an upper room of our mind that we seldom ever access when we're afraid or constricted or shut down. So worry also, the energy of worry can be very useful, is very useful, if we allow that space to say this worry is going to prompt me into what would work in this situation. What can I let go of? What conversation can I go back to make amends to say I have regret about that? As Reverend Sonja said, it did not sit well with me, how that went, how that landed. And to do it quicker and quicker and quicker for my own liberated life. Not for somebody else, not for the morals of it, not for the ethics of it, but because I want to live a more liberated life. I want to have more freedom, more spaciousness. I want to be able to live more from this upper room of mind that's been written about, spoken about, talked about, encouraged since the beginning of time from every sage and seer possible. So, one of the things I also heard myself saying again at that graduation commencement, I hope y'all will watch some of that. There was rows and rows and rows of new ministers, licensed ministers, ordained ministers, licensed teachers, people coming up to practice and to serve and to speak about and to live into these principles that we in unity treasure, because of the transformation it's had on our lives. So it's such an honor and a privilege. And as I think about the seeking that we do, the seeking we've been doing since we were small children to get love, the seeking for approval, the seeking for acknowledgement, the seeking to be understood, the seeking of respect. What's the price of that seeking? What's the consequences of the seeking? And then what if today, this very holy moment, this very holy now moment, we took responsibility for being the love we never had, for being the love we didn't receive, and for being the love we have received. of all the love I've got from all the channels I got it from, not where I wanted it from at times, not how I wanted it, not in the flavor I wanted it, and still loved. If after today, our only job, our only intent, our only action was to be and express that love, all of that love moving through you, moving through me, and giving up the notion that I could have had, should have had, needed any more love than the love I had. So I'm going to be the love I didn't receive and be the love I did receive. Possible? Willing? Now see, this is going to require an interrupting an old pattern. It says, no, I'm not going to love till I get love. I'm not going to love till they love me the way I want them to. No, I'm not going to forgive until they forgive me. I'm not going to forgive until they say they're sorry. I'm not. Well, who does that leave in hell? So I cannot live a liberated life and wait anymore. This also then is an encouragement then to acknowledge yourself the way you wanted them to acknowledge you. For you to do that. Count the ways you've knocked it out of the park. Count the ways that you have given and given and given and shown up again and dusted off and brushed off and put yourself back in the game. So the acknowledgement you're seeking, even if they gave you that acknowledgement that you've heard, I'm sure, over your life, what it's experienced as a hole in us, that's a God hole. And we've tried to fill it with everything under the sun. Instead of, it's an inside job. So I'm going to give me the acknowledgement I so desperately wanted, Mama to, Daddy to, Aunt Martha to, everybody else in the world to, and say, I'm going to give that acknowledgement to myself now. And then from that fullness of that acknowledgement, from the fullness of that, then I'm going to practice acknowledging, whether they do or not. I'm also going to give from the overflow of that acknowledgement for matters of changing the world, for matters of changing the lineage, for matters of transformation, for matters of creating a world that's far more interesting to me, instead of handing down these patterns of the last 2,000 years. And then appreciation, acknowledgement is my job to fill me with that from the inside out. Then if anybody else ever acknowledges us or appreciates us, it's a bonus. We also won't be as likely to mistake their appreciating me as anything to do with me. Because if they're appreciating me, whose consciousness is that coming from? So then I can observe that, oh, they appreciate me. And then, oh, the allure to think it's all about me. Instead of, no, they're appreciating me is a reflection of their own consciousness. It reflects their own values to appreciate, their own values to acknowledge. And I can soak it up. I can receive it and not mistake that it's mine. And make darn sure I don't get any more addicted to it than I already am. Because then when they don't give that approval, when they don't give the acknowledgement, and I'm more and more addicted to it, what happens? Despair, hopeless, resentment, regret, frustration, and then right back to this small animal part of the brain I go. Ain't it awful? Ain't it awful? And I hope you'll watch that commencement because Reverend Sanja knocked it out of the park. Knocked it out of the park. So you've been witnessing her in this last year of her training. And it was so powerful, including what she demonstrated very visually, that you'll see of how we kind of get caught in our own patterns and in a spin of our life without much awareness, like, oh, if I can make a quantum leap, if I can make a quantum jump out of here, I've got an entirely new portal available to me. I've got an entirely new arena available to me, of which I will never see or sense or witness if I stay on this track. And then she demonstrated how well we run this track. And then we can run it on one foot. Then we can run it on one foot and spinning plates. Instead of, wait, I can't do that as much anymore. I've got to get this quantum jump out of here. I've got to say, there is an easier way to be. There is a higher way of seeing this. There is more of a mystical view here that I'm able to see when I'm caught in this. And there's no one in the world to do it for me. So that leaves us. So think about a situation, something you've got in your life right now that you would do well to make a quantum leap out of. Something you're tied up in, something that maybe keeps you awake, something that's calling to be surrendered, forgiven, something that's calling even when I cannot understand it, that I absolutely say and admit as I surrender again and again and again, I cannot understand this, and in this dimension, I don't have the capacity to understand this. So I surrender the need. I surrender the energy of trying to understand what cannot be understood. I stop trying to make sense out of what doesn't make sense so that I can be free again. I don't know how and why things happen. I don't know how and why things have to happen the way they do. And I know that I can't be and express what I want to in the world and in life and with people and in relationships and institutions and organizations and in prayer and in living and creating this world we sing and pray about every Sunday if I leak my energy off trying to make sense of things or trying to understand what cannot be understood. So get a sense of that in you. That if today you said, I've had just enough of that suffering. I've had just enough of that particular spin. So I surrender to trying to understand this. I surrender to trying to make sense of this. And get a sense of how it would feel in your body, even as if you leave it like at an altar. As the song encouraged us to empty my hands of this. And this may be a certain way of being, maybe a certain attitude, maybe a choice to say, oh, after June 19th in 2022, I made a choice to live more liberated, regardless of the circumstances, regardless of the attitudes, regardless of the situation. I took back and reclaimed my own inherent innate power for choice. So to make choice in any way that I can that leans toward liberated living. So this is a book called Martha's Pearls. I gave this to every one of the people that's been here for this convention this week. This book exists to get empowered teachings to the whole of the planet. So that's why it's in print, and that's why I offer it. That's why I speak from it. That's why I hand it out, give it away to people that I think may actually teach from it or use it for group studies or something like that. I would love you to be a co-inspirator with me also and check out the book and see how it's meaningful to you. It's all about practical ways for liberated living, called Martha's Pearls. It's available on Amazon. And the next time I'm here, I'll have one for you. But don't wait, because together we can get these empowered teachings to more than I can do alone. This is chapter 7, and it says, practice makes. So we're going to jump out of this spin here. Practice makes perfect in the old way. Now we're making a quantum leap up out of that to practice makes progress. And thanks to David Roth for putting that into my mind and heart. Practice makes progress. I had the privilege and practice of celebrating my birthday now for more than 60 years. As a work in progress, you want to turn to somebody and tell them, hey, I'm a work in progress. Hey, I'm a work in progress. Now, if they live with you, they know that already. I'm willing and did enjoy every song, every call, every text, everything that provided a blessing for me. And in reflection, I'm reminded of the lyrics from David Roth's song, Practice Makes Progress. And David and I were serving together when I heard this, and I realized it was as true or truer than anything I'd ever heard. And that this path to liberation is not a tick box exercise, not something we do. So it's like, oh, I've done all my forgiveness work. It's like, you have not. Guess how you know? You have a pulse. Thank you. This is the amen corner. Her response was, because I'm breathing. If so, that's what my teacher said. Now, Martha, check and see if you have a pulse. That'll be your indicator that you're not through with forgiveness. And the teachers, the sages and seers over time said 70 times 7, to infinity, to eternity, I'll be doing this. So, practicing. And here are some of the ways that I have observed progress in my own practice and from serving human beings since my earliest memories from 3 years old. Taking sensible action in every situation. What would a sane, sensible person do here? So when somebody cuts you off in traffic, what would a sane, sensible person do? Sane, sensible person. This is going to require us now to jump out of that pit, to jump out of that old way and say, I'm going to create something different here. To take sensible action towards solving problems, to look for possibilities, and to lessen my attachment to outcomes. I did all I could do. It turned out the way it's going to turn out. Everybody take a big breath on this. This was what other people would say saved my life. Less and less and less and less and less and less jumping in with noble attempts to please, which is impossible to do. Have you noticed? then even if they're pleased for a moment, it won't last. Building my tolerance, a tolerance and understanding and acceptance and allowance of discomfort. Growing myself for a higher tolerance of pain in myself and a higher tolerance of pain as I witness others. Accepting then that suffering is a part of our human learning processes. It's not bad, it's not wrong, it's included. And then I had an awakening to know that whatever discomfort I have, whatever emotions of sadness or anger, rage, or whatever it was, that God is using those emotions for me as well. So I am not as likely to deny anger, sadness, frustration, irritation. That those emotions are there to awaken me, to inform me, and to strengthen me. Staying quiet and quieter, allowing other members of my family, other members of a group, other members of anybody to respond from where they stand without having to jump in and say where I stand, or giving my opinion when it has not been sought, giving my opinion when it's not been asked for. And then it's no different of standing and beating my head against a brick wall and wondering why my head is bleeding, instead of there's another way to be with this here. So it's gaining mastery then into looking to see if there's an opening and then taking the opening instead of trying to make an opening. This one has been, these next two, some of the most difficult for me. And that is allowing time for things to process. I can see your faces and hear from some of you that you've got some trips around the mulberry bush on this too. Because then it's like, how much time is it going to take? Are you going to take this to your grave? We've prayed about it. We've thought about it. We've reconciled. We've said we're sorry. We've wrote letters. We've made amends. I've put it in 43 burning bowls for the last 40 years. How much time is it going to take? And the answer is, God knows. Not my timing, God's timing. And for me to be willing that it may go to the grave with them and with me. So I have shed all I can, I have left all I can, and it's a process, not a tick box exercise. And I remember in my early days of ministry, 20-some years ago now, a coach and a minister, clergy that was leading us through a difficult time in this church I was serving. He kept saying to me, trust the process. Trust the process. You've had 3 visits. How many do you need? 100 years maybe. Who knows? And I cannot live liberated if I'm trying to nail Jell-O to a tree. And I cannot live liberated if I'm trying to push a river or redirect a river to get it to flow in another way. If I'm trying to make a bean plant grow by pulling on it, which I've done in spades. Om, om, om. Grow. Grow. Look at her. She's growing. The other one is accepting that there's times that we have to stand alone. That we have to have times of solitude for reflection, contemplation, and to accept a feeling of aloneness even when I'm not alone. And to be willing, like every master teacher we've had, to say there'll be times when I may be standing alone on certain things. I may be the one in the out position. And as very, very scary as that is, it's very, very fertile soil. And I know many of you know about this. Questioning concepts, false beliefs, things like failure. I worked with someone yesterday that's so afraid of failing. Can you relate? Like it's unbearable, this notion that we're going to fail in some way, like it's possible. And it's like failure is a mind-made concept, unless you believe God's inept. Then it's not possible to fail. Now, we may have said, hey, I want to go from location A to location B, and I ended up from location A at location C. So that was a failure. It's not a failure. It just didn't turn out the way I had in mind. And the mind will say, that's a failure. And if you believe unity teachings, then if I call it a failure, how am I going to experience it? If you call it a failure, how will you experience it? As what you just called it. So you'll feel like you failed. You'll feel like you're a failure. So this is the co-creative process. So I've got to name it something else to experience something else. And this is living the turnarounds. This said it's a failure. Is that true? Can I absolutely know that that's what it is? And who would I be if I didn't believe ending up somewhere I didn't plan to be was a failure? Who would you be if you didn't believe that anymore? And then taking down the old archaic framework of right and wrong, of good and bad, of better or worse. And it's like when traffic flows, that is so good. So then when traffic is blocked, now what's the chances that traffic will flow all the time? Altogether? None, 0, 0, 0. So then for me to have emotional maturity, for me to have spiritual maturity, for me to live a liberated life, then it has to include all of it. It flows, it doesn't. They respect me, they didn't. They included me, they excluded me. They were kind, they weren't. Alpha and Omega, not one or the other, but both and. And my peace, my power, my presence, my functioning, all resides in the integration of the all, of everything. The good news is, I don't have to like it. And I sure don't have to love it. And I don't have to go to war with it either. And then stand up every Sunday and say there shouldn't be war. and let there be peace on earth. And let it begin with her. And as soon as he changes his attitude, I'll be in peace. And as soon as he apologizes, I'll be at peace. As soon as traffic flows 100% of the time, I'll be at peace. I won't have any, not for long. So close your eyes if you can and draw on something you've heard this morning or felt. And we now take these teachings, these new ideas, we take this quantum leap out of this old archaic way into a new quantum leap, into a new quantum arena through our meditation to see what is possible in this new arena. So imagine you now that you've made the quantum leap. You've had a born-again experience. You're new. You feel different. You feel new. You've got a new revitalization, a new rejuvenation. You see and sense and know an easier way. And you see and sense and know that the prison that you live in, even at times, the door is open to that prison. It's wide open. And this is your day, this is your moment, this is your morning to walk right through that door. That I'm choosing liberation. I'm choosing greater peace. I'm choosing integration. I then shift out and invite you to a quantum leap out of black and white, either or thinking, to both and. And what that would do for you to live alive in the both and, freer of seeking, freer of wanting, freer of needs, absolutely free of any kind of shoulda, should. Alive, even imagine your tail wagging. Like, oh wow, I'm practicing here. Oh wow, I'm making choice. Oh wow, there's a different way to be. Yes, I see this, I sense this, I choose this. And when I notice I'm wanting their love and their approval and their appreciation, I'm awake now to know that that's an inside job. So then I take the pause to acknowledge self, to be the love I'm seeking, to be the love I want and need, to be the love I've had and haven't had. The return to power. Now imagine you as a third person. So you're in your same life, same relationships, same house, same bed, same job, same community, same neighborhoods. You're there exactly in the same situations, but you're very, very different. You have transformed. You have transcended. You have integrated reality. Aware that God is reality. What are your attributes? What are your characteristics in this new form? Who would you be? How would you be? Imagine. So we leave the old ways at this altar. Big, deep breath. I invite you to the biggest, deepest breath. Imagine a breath that's purifying, a breath that you bring up from the bottoms of your feet all the way through your being, and exhale out through the crown, out through the top of your head. Open at the top. Open, the top. Recalibrated for a quantum leap, as a quantum leap. And a big deep breath in through the crown and all the way down through the body, exhaling through the feet, purified, renewed, revitalized, restored, rejuvenated. We give thanks to a living, loving spirit, to a God, a creator, a universe, a mind that evokes this transformation, that invokes through us and as us, for us, the highest potential for the evolution of our soul, for the evolution of our being, and for the evolution of humanity. And we say yes again this morning. Yes, yes, yes. And so it is. Amen.